U.S. home prices rose nearly 11% for the largest annual gain in 7 years. That's according to the latest Standard & Poor's Case-Shiller Home Price Index. But does that mean we are on the road to recovery? Let's have a look.
For a long time, economists saw rising home prices as an important economic driver. This week, new data in the Case-Shiller Index showed that home prices surged during the first quarter at their fastest pace in nearly 7 years. In a separate report, consumer confidence picked up in May to its highest in more than 5 years, in the midst of a stock market rally. While some say home price gains largely reflect a rebound from low levels, some experts say that the data can sometimes overstate the magnitude of price increases because it includes foreclosures. Economists expect the pace of growth is likely to slow down in the second half of the year, partly due to tighter fiscal policy. In addition, investor attention has turned to the Fed about whether it will start to slow its economic stimulus efforts.
And joining us for this panel discussion, we have our wonderful Jackie Guzda and Dee Dee Benkie and real estate expert Anthony Lolli. Now, he is the founder and CEO of Rapid Realty, one of the fastest growing real estate companies in New York. So we certainly thank you for being on the show, Anthony, and sharing some of your thoughts and insights. All right, so let's talk about this recovery. Are we on the road to recovery? We talked about this last week, ladies. Anthony, we're going to let you take a first shot at this one.
Well, I think we are, because you have institutional investors buying up and swallowing up a lot of the properties that have been laying dormant, and they're renting them out. So they're doing the right thing. They're well staffed, and I think we're seeing less and less foreclosure inventory hit the market. So what you're noticing is a spike in purchases, but because there's limited inventory, it's supply and demand.
Jackie, you're shaking your head yes, but you were telling me that your neighbor didn't sell a house for nearly a year.
A year, the realtor, yeah. You know, in New York, we've had a pretty good housing market. We've been moving. However, you know, in some spots, like where I live, nothing's been moving at all. And 8 years ago, when I bought my house, people would walk down the street and say to me, "Do you know any houses for sale?"
Yeah.
But are we at the levels of the 2003? Are we going to come close to that? Again, Anthony, I'm going to ask you
it's a
first.
more controlled market. I mean, I think that there's more strict lending opportunities out there, so there's not so much loose credit.
Well, yeah, that's one of the big things right now. Credit is still very hard to get. The Fed has pushed those interest rates as low as they can go, but it's still very hard to get that cash if you need it for a loan. So how will that change?
Well, I think right now people have commitment phobia. They're not interested in purchasing right now. They would like to achieve the American dream, but to be honest with you, what was the American dream? Just to fog the mirror and qualify to get a predatory loan? So I think that slowly but surely people are getting over it, but the banks are tough.
Well, and what you said, you're talking about these aren't people buying homes, these are corporations buying lots of homes so you can rent them out. I mean, how much does that really help? I guess with the supply and demand, the inventory, but overall, as far as Americans, you know, being foreclosed upon and having, you know, and these programs, you know, really weren't implemented that great. No. I mean, they just weren't. And it's too bad. So I think we're really still in a bad shape. I mean, if we're inch a little, but you know, it's been going on so long, it's almost too little too late.
Well, but let's not talk about that inch, let's talk about that yard, because there's certain areas right now across the country. Now, Phoenix and San Francisco saw 22% rising home prices, and even Las Vegas was at about 20%. So is this worrisome as a realtor? Let me ask you, Emily.
Well, I think because the institutional investors are buying up properties, they're increasing the equity appreciation rate, but that makes it favorable. There's limited supply right now. So if the value of homes rise, it makes it more comfortable for existing home sellers to actually want to list their home and not have to come up out of pocket and pay towards the mortgage.
But specifically, when you see certain pockets of the U.S. growing at this rapid rate, is that troublesome? I mean, my sister-in-law out in Scottsdale, she was a realtor. She's selling houses like that.
Oh yeah.
But is that worrisome if the rest of the parts of the rest of the country aren't catching up?
Well, they'll have to catch up. I think it's about making the loans attractive in those parts of the country.
But it may not happen. They may not catch up. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. We've been down in the dumps so long. I mean, there's going to take a while to crawl out for sure.
Well, you know, the good thing that's happening is that it's opening up the psychology that, yeah, it's safe now to list your home on the market. Yeah, I might find a buyer. I might be able to sell it a little higher than I bought it. And I think that's a good thing that's happening.
Well, of course, one of the barometers is always the New York market. So, Anthony, you're, of course, very involved in the New York market. Give us a little bit about your background and what you're seeing here on the East Coast.
Well, we have about 62 locations, mainly in New York City. We're also in Boston, Philadelphia, and New Jersey, but the main concentration is the 5 boroughs. And what we're seeing is more educated sellers. They're practicing the art of prevention is cheaper than cure. So they're going ahead and getting their home inspected and taking care of any of the violations or stipulations that would cause a bank not to lend the purchaser the money. So you're noticing homes staying on the market only about a week to 3 weeks max.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, what about the bubble? What about whenever, you know, the interest rates are very low now, but what about, and they've got to go up. I
Yes.
mean, is there a possibility they go up very quickly and then everything falls apart?
I don't think so. I think they're going to go up slowly. It's going to slow things down. I think we're on an even keel right now.
Yeah,
I think that,
yeah, I've heard people talking about the bubble, but it's been so depressed
For so long.
so long that these little inklings that we see now, a sale here, a sale there, it's not going to happen. I lived through the bubble where you couldn't find a house for under $300,000 in my neighborhood. We're talking a shack. It's going to take a long while before that happens again.
Now, we talked about in our previous segment about people forgiving Anthony Weiner, but people don't seem to be so forgiving about with their hearts about wanting to buy. They seem to be, the trust is not there.
Sure.
So how do you get that back?
well, it's tough because there were things like the zombie foreclosures that happened and the new law that passed in California.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, basically the bank would inundate the homeowner with letters. You have to leave, you haven't paid your mortgage. They would pack up and leave, and then they would find out 6 months later they were still on the hook for taxes, water, and sewer.
Oh, wow.
And so it would come back like a zombie to haunt them. So there were new laws that were implemented, especially in California, which had the highest foreclosure rate, which stopped the banks from continuing foreclosure proceedings while you were negotiating a loan modification.
Definitely some bad dealings with the government and with the process, though. I mean, you know, if those had been fixed or at least improved upon, that would be very helpful.
But look, when I was buying my house, I was getting phone calls left and right. People saying, well, we can get you a mortgage for no money down. We can get you a mortgage that interest only is what you pay. And I was on the other end of the phone saying, no, you can't, because it didn't make sense.
Right.
So
they were giving out that money then.
you know, and they didn't have anything to back it up with. So now I understand in January, they're instituting a law that you have to show that you can back up your mortgage in order to get one.
Sure, and there's new laws being instituted even with reverse mortgages, which were an indirect predatory lending instrument used towards senior citizens.
Wow. It's interesting you say that because the older woman down the street from me did that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, are we, let me ask you a question, Anthony, specifically for you. Is the economy at risk for another boom-bust cycle in the housing market, or are we at a healthier spot? I mean, do you see us, you know, 2003 we were up here, 2006 we were here, we're about here right now. Do you think we can get back up to the levels of 2003?
I think the institutional investors are really stabilizing and they're becoming pillars of the real estate community. And what I mean by that, it's no longer you can take a home equity loan or refinance and get a Home Depot card and then flip your way to become a real estate investor. So you have responsible people that know what they're doing and they're crunching the numbers and they're actually assuming the right type of responsibility and grooming the properties
But
properly.
you know what, when you say that, it makes me think of, did you see It's a Wonderful Life in Potterville? Like Mr. Potter, like he bought them all up, I mean, he just kind of let them go, and I don't know, it just seems like it'd be better if people can buy their own homes instead of one group buying up thousands of them and then renting them out. I don't know.
Well, I'm hearing rumors that most of the times they're all thinking about hanging on to the properties, renting them out for the next 5 to 7 years, and then slowly liquidating some of these properties and entering them back into the sales market.
So that'll certainly be good for the economy as
Sure.
well. And of course, whenever we see anything like that, you mentioned Home Depot, all these buyers, the contractors, that's all on the rise right now as well. So that's certainly a good reflection for the economy as
Yeah.
well.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so now, what would be your prediction for the next? Let me ask you your prediction for the next 1 year, and then for the next 5 years. What do you see for the U.S. economy with the housing market?
Well, when you study, there's still going to be limited supply. If you study what's going on with permits and plans being submitted to the building departments, even some of the major sales developers like the Toll Brothers are shifting their gears towards rental-related projects. So you're going to notice a lot of those projects coming to fruition,
And
raising the bar.
Aren't rentals actually on the rise?
They are on the rise.
But
So
I
right
still
now-
don't think that's a good, I don't know why, it seems to me that's not a good thing. less home ownership and more rentals. I mean, how is that a good thing?
Again, if you think of the success of Zipcar, people don't want to own. People don't want to own albums. They just want to buy one song. I mean, and look at the new thing that was instituted, the city bike. People don't even want to buy bikes anymore.
But see, that's a completely different mentality
Sure.
than having the American dream and having your own home.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not so sure that's a healthy shift.
How do you get back the trust, though? I mean, like, how do you want? I mean, obviously, home sales are good for the economy because people invest more into their homes. That's good for contractors. So overall, it's good for the entire economy. How do we get people to want that American dream again and trust in buying a home?
It's probably going to have to be inch by inch, and you said it yourself, which that would be good if they have them as rentals and they fix them up to eventually sell.
Yes.
That would be good, but 5 to 7 years, that's a long time.
But look, the good thing that's happening now is that it's actually cheaper sometimes to own your own home than to have a rental. That would spur me on. And it's also the idea of that American dream. When I bought my home, it was probably the worst and the happiest day of my life. I had a home, my home.
Sure. I mean, it's still a forced way to save, and it's still a good way to build a nest egg.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly a great investment because we want to be diversified. We always talk about being diversified, and certainly having a home is one way to go. Well, it seems like the growing number of buyers are bidding on a tight supply of those homes as well. So my question is, who are those growing number of buyers? Are they the young kids? Are they?
It's typically families, people that are looking to buy their first home. But what's happening is they're getting outbid an average of 4 to 5 times, and then they're looking towards new construction. So existing homes are being gobbled up again
by the big guys, by the big guys taken up. That's
Sure.
what I mean. That doesn't sound good.
Sure.
Well, we'll see what happens in the future, because I think anything that gets this economy moving is a good thing.
I think so. I agree.
Well, most of the price rises come at the bottom or the high end of the market. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, and how is that going to affect the economy?
Well, I think that what's happening again, as you mentioned, that all this stimulation, all this action, all this activity is causing confidence, and confidence is key in this market. People need to know what's going on. I mean, Wall Street's doing well for now.
Well,
and
well, they had a bad day on Friday, but the Dow was up for the 20th consecutive Tuesday, and again, we're looking to see if we can ever get we're at the highest level we've ever been.
Exactly.
But a lot of people are still wondering if that's false confidence.
Well, when you feel good and you're making money, you want to own, and that's really the key.
Yeah, and anytime you get burnt, as we have been burnt in the last decade, you're going to be wary of a situation that involves commitment like a house does.
Well, do you think we're seeing overall growth on other parts of the market as well?
I think slowly. I think it all depends on how you're measuring the bar. There's limited foreclosure inventory now, so that's really spiking up the prices. There's less under market value properties out there, so it's kind of giving the false appearance that prices are really spiking.
But does that hurt like the independent businesses, like the contractors and the plumbers and the, I mean, does that help or hurt when it comes to, independent contractors trying to get working on homes? Because that's a big business. And if they're not building any homes, I mean, it kind of leaves the little guy in the dust, and your big guys, again, they do well. And
the other thing that's helping those independent contractors are people like me who hold on to their homes for a long time. And one thing I've learned is that owning a home is a continual process. You have to get this done, that done.
But that's something every once in a while, though. I mean, like actually building a home, that's a lot of work
for
these guys.
But it keeps, I can see in my own neighborhood that my person who has a construction company who used to put up new homes, he's now up on my roof, putting that in. He's doing anything, goes no job too big or too small at this point.
That's an interesting point. Do you think that also because of the Freddie Macs and the Fannie Mae's and all the things that happen with the giving away of the money, that we have more watchdogs and people making sure that that's not going to happen again? Will that also clearly must help spur confidence in the market as well?
Absolutely. There's more watchdog websites out there, and there's websites like Truly and Zillow that arm buyers and sellers and truly educate them on the both ends of the process.
All right, now Anthony, we're going to use your real estate knowledge right now. First-time home buyer, they're going out there, they want to buy a home. Tell us some of the things that they need to make sure that they do.
Well, you need to do your research. You need to run comparables, make sure that you're actually bidding on a home that's going to get appraised, because that's the other issue right now. Appraisers are very, very careful and unreliable about some of the appraisals. So again, going back to prevention is cheaper than cure, a lot of sellers are actually appraising their homes in advance and handing their personal appraisal to the bank's appraiser so that they just don't limit their chances.
All right, we have about 20 more seconds. Just another tip for the new home buyer.
I think the new home buyers should actually get educated about all the lending instruments that are available today. There's banks out there competing for your business still, and get your credit repaired. If your credit's not that great, there's tons of companies out there that offer great credit restoration services.
Anthony Lolli, thank you so much for being on our show. Jackie Guzda, always great to see you, and you too, Dee Dee Benkie. And we thank you as well for joining us here on Fresh Outlook. We always enjoy your company, and we want to extend our thoughts and wishes for a speedy recovery for the folks in Oklahoma as that part of the nation continues to clean up after another round of deadly tornadoes. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you here next week.